All right, guys. So this week I saw that the astronauts, the very, very well qualified, well trained professional, studied their whole lives to go up there, Blue Origin all female crew, recently made it up there. And everyone had their own opinion. Every single person. I think it was Gail King or whatever was like, oh, if you disagree with what we're doing, like, you don't even know. And it just gave me the kind of thing where, like, a rich person does something, or maybe you went to school with this type of kid, a rich person does something and then they try to make it sound like it was super hard when it was like, bro, like you wouldn't have been able to do this if you weren't super rich. Like, I don't like, and I have no problem with people being rich. I mean, I think people stunning on people is literally half of society today. If you look on social media, everyone's trying to stun on everybody. But to me, I don't know if you guys saw, it was like Katy Perry, Gayle King. I think there was one qualified person out of those six people on that crew that was, studied aerospace engineering, graduated from the University of Michigan. But the rest of them were like, I think one was like one was used to be a pilot or whatever, and then a pop star, and then a TV show host. I mean, it's ridiculous, But anyway, they go up there and then they basically pay. I don't know if you guys know this, but for the Blue Origin, the rumored deposit is around $150,000, which means that basically only rich people can do this. And, they're stunting. They're literally stunting. They're like, look at me spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to hang out for 10 minutes. I mean, honestly, I don't really see much of a difference from this as like a rich kid driving. No, not even driving. Going on his dad's yacht while someone drives it for him and being like, I'm now a marine biologist. I love the sea. I am of the sea. And what did she say? What did Katy Perry say? I think she was like, oh, I feel so much love. It's like if a rich kid just docked his boat in New York City, got a captain to drive him around, and then came back and was like, I don't want to call myself a biologist, but I just am filled with so much love. Like, if any other type of celebrity were to do what they just did, they would be getting even more ripped apart. It would be disastrous. If it was like, let's say, I love 50 Cent. He's like he's pretty cool. But if he pulled that crap they just pulled, where they go up on a glorified roller coaster, and they're like, hey, like, I just took a big step for humanity, and I hope my story inspires you. And I'm like, no, what are you are you delusional? Is everyone seeing this right now? Like, I'm not that angry at it. I just am mind boggled with how someone could think that. There are actually inspirational people, I think, that are out there that, go through things. And even the one person on that crew, Aisha Bowe, who actually has somewhat of a, she actually has a story, how she was at community college, how she took a math class, and it inspired her to get her bachelor's degree and her master's degree at the University of Michigan in aerospace engineering. I didn't hear a single word about anyone saying anything about her. It was all like, what does Katy Perry have to say? Oh, she released a song? Who gives a shit? Like, I'm literally like, even if you're a Katy Perry fan, let's say you were going to listen to that single, right? I highly doubt the correlation between Katy Perry fans and people who are legitimately interested in space travel or who can afford the space travel are like super interlinked. I don't think those two groups of people are the same people. I mean, I don't want to just like crash out here over a simple like, whatever, but what really blows my mind is that people want you to kind of care, whether they want a negative reaction from you, which I guess they got out of me, or a positive reaction for you to be like, oh no, like they're so brave. They just did this big thing. And it's like they flew on a fully automated flight miles below where the FAA says that like astronauts. And then they come down and say they're astronauts, didn't do a single experiment, had no operational responsibilities, literally just went up there. Most people that do what they did usually pay 150 grand a pop. So this is literally just limited to the ultra rich. This isn't something you get by merit. And I'm sorry, like, imagine if by the way, Jeff Bezos did the same thing. Obviously, he sent himself up to space a few years ago, I think. Imagine he had come down and he had done a press tour of like, I'm an astronaut. And he built the company. He's not like a dud. He literally started Blue Origin in 2000. But if he had come down and was like, I'm an astronaut, that, like, this is a huge step for billionaires to be able to go into space. I feel like he would have gotten even more ripped apart than I think some of the crew is getting attacked or criticized, whatever you want to call it, up now. I think there was like a supermodel, Emily. There's no way I'm going to say her last name. Emily something, Emily R, who was like, oh, like, how can you do that? The world's burning and, like, you're traveling up there. And again, I'm not an eat the rich kind of guy. I'm not like, oh my God, I hate rich people. But there is a little bit of like, there's a little bit of humor, I guess. Ironic, dark humor. If you just see people just shooting themselves up to space and just chilling at basically 150 grand a pop to just hang out while, the rest of us down here, like, what happened didn't the stock market go into free fall last week? The same week the stock market goes into free fall, or around the time period, there's people that can just shoot themselves up into space. You got to kind of find the humor in that. You can't just be sad and be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. But like, it's kind of like but the idea that they're doing this is so funny. And the idea that the media was trying to portray it as like, oh, like, they're so brave, they made this big step. And honestly, it's a little bit insulting when they didn't focus on the one person there who actually had a contribution. And then the funniest thing is when the celebrities, instead of being like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have said all those things about us being astronauts, they double down and were like, if you disagree with us, you must not know what we're doing. You must not have the mental capacity to understand what big of a step we did. It is honestly so funny to me. That is the worst argument I've heard people make. And a lot of people make that argument. They'll just be like, you disagree with me because you don't know enough. You're too ignorant. It can never be their fault. It can never be it's always that the person that disagrees with them simply does not have the understanding or the intellectual capacity to just get a clear picture of what's going on. It's always that. It can never be a nuanced thing where maybe there's a little bit of right and a little bit of wrong. And I think there is a little bit of right in this kind of situation. For example, I think it was someone made this point I saw that when airplanes were invented, a lot of celebrities at the time were kind of using it to garner more attention and therefore more funding, and therefore it was able to kind of excel the development of these kind of endeavors, at a faster pace. But I feel like it was bad PR. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what do I know about PR? I'm literally yelling in an attic right now. But I don't think that was a good look. I work with a number of women at my job, and I didn't even comment on this because I was like, I don't know. I mean, I keep it professional at work. I'm never going to just give my unsolicited opinion on anything. But I knew someone there who was like, oh, like, did you see this? And I was like, yeah, I saw, like, they went up. And she was like an older woman, and she was like, that's such a bad look for them. Like, they just set women back like 20 years. And I was like, really? I'm like, okay, then I think about this. I'm like, okay. Because obviously I'm a man, and I feel like no matter how objective I try to be, I'm going to be a guy at the end of the day, and there's going to be perspective I simply don't have as I'm not a female. And that's kind of why I don't really like speaking for females. But anyway, it was crazy to me that a grown woman gave that opinion. And I was like, wait, so who is this for then? I'm like, if it's not for like, to teach or whatever guys, or like if it's not to inspire, I'm like, who is this for if it's not for either, from what it seemed at least like at my job, for men or women. She wasn't the only one who said that. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, are they just trying to like force us to believe things, and everyone's kind of just, I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just asking questions. And I'm just wondering, like, who's this for? Who is supposed to like look at this? Even if you think that this is for the greater good in terms of aspiring, the next generation of female scientists or things like that. I feel like there's so many better examples of people excelling in adversarial conditions to inspire the younger generation of female scientists. I just feel like there's so many better examples. I mean, you could have focused in my opinion, you could have made a whole piece, maybe even like a YouTube thing or like whatever, about Aisha Bo on that crew, and talk about her trials and tribulations when she left her community college and transitioned to somewhere as, I guess, prestigious as the University of Michigan, and talked about how she faced certain obstacles in her career. Instead, you have like a press tour where I barely even saw the clips that went up or the news articles that were written. They barely mentioned Aisha Bo. It was all about Gayle King. It was all about Katy Perry. Two people who have no experience, probably as much experience as a community college physics major or whatever. And it's just like, well, yeah, that's why it's not taken seriously. I'm like, if anything, that's kind of discouraging. I think it shows people that like, hey, you don't need to go be a scientist to go on these amazing experiences or to be part of history or whatever. You just need to sing and gossip. I mean, I'm not, and again, I don't like, how do I say it? Like, I don't have any malice in my heart towards the celebrities that did this. I just think the way they worded it and the way people word things in general means a lot these days. And it's not something to be taken lightly. At least I think. Like, I don't think you should take it that lightly when they try to, I wouldn't want to say force, but when they try to implant these things in your mind of just like, this is that and that is this. And I don't know. I don't like it. And this goes on to, I guess, my point for the entire episode this week. I feel like nowadays you have to be crazy to stay sane. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to assume that back in the 90s, before social media, there was less of a larger cloud of societal expectations. I'm sure back then it was get married, go to college, but like, who talked to you about that? Your parents, maybe older siblings, maybe aunts and uncles, but very like close family, personal, whatever. Nowadays, literally anyone can tell you anything about any aspect of your life. You should feel this way about that. You should make people feel this way about that. You should act this way. You should act that way, whatever it is. And it seems like no matter which side of the fence you fall on which issue, there's always a constant feed of negative feedback thrown your way. And I think that's really unhealthy. I honestly do. And if you take, I'll say traditional, or as best as you can, because, it's hard to stay traditional, I think. But if you take some of the traditional, characteristics and try to adhere to them as much as possible to at least get a base. So let's say the norm nowadays is to, be on your phone all the time and basically communicate in TikTok references and communicate in social media banter, whatever it is. And you just want to have a calm conversation with someone, let's say, I don't know, a friend or a girlfriend, whatever it is, and you actually want to have some dialogue. And instead of talking about things between the two of you, both of you are thinking like, hey, like, I saw Kim Kardashian's or Khloe Kardashian's ex-boyfriend cheat, so I think that, or whatever. And then the guy's thinking like, well, I saw that NBA player get taken for half his money, so and it's just this thing of like, you guys are both being insane. You guys are drawing things that have nothing to do with with either of you, or you just get affected by these social media kind of influence. And I'm not saying that I'm not. I'm just saying that you have to realize that it's not the end all be all. There's nuanced situations. And when I feel like you are who you are, like you're very, I would say, unapologetic. I'm not even saying right. And this is another thing too. I'm not saying that you're going to be right by breaking away from the norm on how everyone's thinking, but I think you'll be calmer. And when you're calmer, you're more likely to make less emotional and more right decisions. So for example, if you find yourself having an opinion that 7 out of 8 people don't have, I honestly, at this point, I don't think that's a bad thing. When I was younger, I used to be a little timid to have a different opinion from 4 out of the 5 people I'm friends with, or 2 out of the 3 people that I'm having a conversation with. But now, after I see that everything's going the way it's going, people are combative, half the people have social anxiety, the other half are super mean to each other, I'm like, you know what, maybe the right course is to stay sane by being crazy. Because if you're the 1 in 6 people that think hey, you know what, I actually don't care about that and I care about this, you look a little crazy. If you say hey, you know what, I kind of just value my sleep and a routine over, I would say quick pleasure or whatever, or I value how I feel in the morning, so I choose to eat a certain way, you might get looked at a little weird, especially if people don't like the way you conduct yourself and with the way you do certain things. So for example, every now and then I'll do a 24-hour fast. And I've had people call me insane. I've had people be like, that's so crazy. I don't know how you do that. This, and that. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I feel better every now and then. I feel like it tests my mind. I know I'm safe. I drink water, whatever, and I'm fine. And it's not for any physical reason. It's literally for mental clarity. But then because you feel, but then people will say that to me. I've seen people say that to me, be like, that's crazy you do that. And then get blackout drunk 2 days later. And I'm like, is that, and I'm not saying I don't drink, but I'm like, is that not worse than what I just did? I'm like, I went to sleep fine and then I had a meal. You just blacked out and now you can't move the next day. I'm like, what are we talking about? Or people will be like, oh, like, you just like, that you're waking up so early, that's so crazy. And they'll go to sleep at like 1 a.m. And I'm like, yeah, that's why you think it's that early, because you're sleeping. Isn't it crazier to go to sleep at 1 a.m. than waking up at like 6 or 5 or whatever? Like, what are we even talking about? Or, there's so many different things that you can kind of, I think, apply this to, whether it's even the boundaries you have in friendships or relationships. You know what I think is weird? And this is just, I don't know, maybe I'm a weirdo, but I think it's weird that, you have, let's say, a best friend, right? And he's your best guy friend or whatever. And then they both end up dating the same girl at some point. I don't want to comment too much on people's personal relationships. I just think that, I don't know. I wouldn't like that. I feel like but again, I feel like I've seen so many people do it that I'm like, I guess I'm crazy. And then they stay friends after, and I'm like, I guess I am crazy. I'm like, I don't think I could be friends with someone right after that. I don't know. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'm not saying it couldn't happen to me, but I'm just saying it. I feel like, I don't know. I think that would be hard, and I don't know. It feels a little weird to me. And then I'll get called weird. Be like, oh, that's not. I'll get called weird. I'll be like, oh, that's so weird that you don't do that. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's fine. I have no problem with being called weird for, I guess, not doing that. But there's so many examples of that I feel like you just have to kind of know who you are and be like, yeah, I guess that's crazy. I don't care. I think even something as trivial as, like, I think one of my hobbies, like I run marathons or whatever. I've never really had anyone say anything negative about it. But when I talk about sometimes that I'm in pain and I've been in a lot of pain and sometimes I need more sleep in order to modify my diet or do these things, like, they're like, that's so, like, for what? Like, for what? Why would you do that? Like, I'm like, all right, what are you doing with your time? This isn't even me being so, I legitimately ask people what they do in their free time. And I hear, like, just give me a full breakdown of, like, the newest, like, Netflix show. And I'm like, you know what? And I'm not saying I don't watch TV. I'm just saying, like, why is it so crazy that I'm like, I've seen people destroy their body with alcohol and drugs and then tell me to not, like, run that much. It's bad for my knees. I'm like, what are you saying? Like, what are you talking about? What, or I've seen people say, like, oh, that's so mean when you're making an observation. And then they lie to the person that I'm making the observation about and talk shit behind their back. I'm like, wait, I feel like that's worse. I don't know. I'm literally just curious on how this is, affects most people. I'm like, because for a while I feel like, if you don't conform to everyone else, to, I guess, the pack or whatever, you are seen as weird, especially in something like high school, middle school, whatever it is. But I think as you get older, you realize that, well, those decisions lead to those things and these decisions lead to these things. And I'm, maybe for the other people, the other path is preferable and they look at, what I think or what I say as a mistake. And, maybe they're like, the guy's just literally ranting in his attic like a weirdo. And I'm like, you know what? I do what I guess I do what I think is best. And I don't know. I just think that you shouldn't be so quick to, I think, adhere to these things. And you have to be like, if someone calls you crazy or something for something that you actually believe in, you shouldn't be quick to back down from your guns and be like, oh, maybe. If someone says something like that to you, analyze how their life is in that specific situation. Let's say they're giving you advice on money, but they're bankrupt. That might not be the greatest sign to take advice from them. Let's say someone's giving you fitness advice and they're far from what you want to be in fitness wise, whatever it is. If they don't have what you want, why are you listening to them? Why are you, I do not understand that. And then there's this crap about, like, oh, well, they have the experience through their mistakes. Half the people that I've met in my life that make mistakes, they don't learn. Most people don't learn from their mistakes. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I've learned from every mistake I've ever done. I'm just saying that's a people thing. Maybe that happens to me too. Maybe it is, like, I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, most people don't learn. If you listen to most people, I don't think it'll go well. I've been in conversations with 4 or 5 people where I just disagree with all of them. And I don't think that maybe they're all right and I'm wrong. Maybe that's the case. I'm not here to argue that. I'm not here to argue who's right. I'm just saying, like, I think to stay sane, to stay not one of like the 6 out of 10 people in Gen Z who's anxious or whatever, you do have to be a little crazy. You have to be a little crazy to stay sane because the world is a little crazy right now. The world is a little combative. You notice that people will kind of hear one thing you say, choose to like take you out of context and only hear what they want to hear. For example, I just mentioned before that Aisha Bo is an inspirational tale of a woman who overcame a bunch of adversity and got her degree. And I think that's very admirable. And I think that she probably should have been on that ship, at least, to get marketing or something for maybe she's doing research or something like that. But I can be objective and be like, why is Katy Perry up there? Like, what are you doing? Like, you basically just paid her for a commercial and she's acting like she went to like Mars. Like, what are we talking? And then when you see like that got so much press, negative or positive, but when SpaceX rescues people from the International Space Station, there's like a line on one newspaper like they got them down. I'm like, why, how can we like, how can we focus so much on one and not the other? Like, that makes no sense. How can Aisha Bo be looked over? How can this SpaceX rescue mission be looked over? But then when Katy Perry and Gayle King like go on a freaking like a glorified roller coaster, it's now the front page of news for weeks, whatever, and it's just I literally think this, to stay sane, you have to be a little crazy. You should be like, I don't care what Katy Perry does. Who is she, bro? Who cares what these celebrities do? Who cares what? I think Dave Chappelle said this. They like brought on back in the day when 9/11 happened. They called Ja Rule in, like a rapper. Like, what do you think about this, Ja? And Dave said, why are they calling in these celebrities? No one cares what he thinks. No one goes through a situation either vastly negative or I hope they don't do this. No one goes through a situation vastly negative or thinks about a genuine, new frontier like space like that and thinks, what would 50 Cent do? What would Katy Perry do? What would Mariah Carey do? I'm sorry. If you're like thinking like, let's say you're making a major life decision and you're like, what would Playboy Cardi do? You're an idiot. I genuinely think you might be chronically online if you think that, what would this celebrity do? What would that celebrity do during major events in your life, whether political, whether financial, whether economical or health-wise? It is ridiculous. Anyway, that's kind of my opinion on the Blue Origin. Video is intended for entertainment and satirical purposes only. The content shared in this video represents personal opinions and humors and is not meant to be taken as professional advice or guidance. This channel and its creators are not affiliated with any professional or educational institution. Viewer discretion is advised, and any resemblance to real events or persons is purely coincidental.